The night was cold on the ruined colony. Broken walls stood like skeletons of forgotten towers, and the wind carried the sound of metal scraping against stone. Ethan, a lone human traveler, moved carefully through the ruins. His boots crunched against the dust. His flashlight flickered across shattered streets. He had come here in search of old supplies, maybe technology left behind, but what he found was something far more dangerous. From a distance, a faint cry reached his ears. At first he thought it was the wind, but then he froze. It was not the wind, it was the high-pitched cry of a child. His heart raced. Human or alien, it did not matter. A cry of fear was always the same. Without thinking, he moved toward the sound, his hand on the weapon strapped to his side. He followed the echo until he reached a crumbled plaza. The moonlight fell weakly through the broken ceiling of a once grand building. There in the center stood a small figure, thin, trembling, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. She was not human. Her skin shimmered with pale silver, her head crowned with delicate ridges, and her hands clutched a broken toy. The child was cornered by 3 scavenger beasts. Their bodies were low to the ground, muscles rippling under dark fur, and their jaws dripped with saliva. Their growls echoed in the ruins, sharp enough to pierce the bones. The little one pressed her back against the wall. She tried to stay strong, but her tiny body shook. One of the beasts lunged forward, snapping its teeth just inches from her face. She screamed, her voice shattering the silence of the night. Ethan did not hesitate. His weapon fired, the sound blasting through the plaza. A beam of light struck the wall near the beast, forcing it to back away. The child turned her wide eyes toward him, shocked and afraid. He knew he had only seconds. The creatures were hungry and his weapon was old. He could not kill them all, not in time. The beasts turned their yellow eyes toward Ethan now, growling louder, circling him slowly. He stepped forward anyway, placing himself between the predators and the child. His mind screamed at him to run, but his body refused. He remembered another time, another place when screams of children filled the battlefield. He had sworn never to let it happen again. The first beast charged. Ethan lifted his arm, firing again. The shot grazed its shoulder, making it howl in rage. But the second beast darted from the side, claws slashing across his suit. Pain burned across his ribs. He fell to one knee, his breath sharp, but his arms spread wide, still shielding the child behind him. "Stay down," he whispered without looking back. His voice was calm, steady, though blood dripped beneath his torn armor. The girl whimpered, clutching his back as if he were her only wall against the darkness. The beasts circled again. Their growls grew louder, their patience shorter. Ethan knew he could not win. His weapon hissed, warning of low power. His vision blurred from blood loss. But he stood taller, forcing himself to be a barrier between death and the innocent life trembling behind him. Another beast lunged, claws aiming for the child. Without thought, Ethan threw himself in front of her, taking the full force across his shoulder. His scream tore through the air, but his body did not fall. He pushed back with everything he had, slamming the creature away. His chest heaved, his knees shook, but still, he refused to move aside. The child began to cry, her voice echoing in the ruins like shattered glass. Her small hands clutched the back of his torn suit. Ethan's vision dimmed, but he tightened his arms around her, bending forward, wrapping himself over her like a living shield. If death came, it would strike him first. The beasts growled, preparing to attack together now. Their shadows moved like death in the pale moonlight. Ethan closed his eyes for just a moment. He felt the weight of the little girl against him. He thought of how fragile her life was, how unfair it would be for it to end here in ruins forgotten by time. He whispered one last word, "Safe," and then a scream split the night. But it was not the girl's. It was a roar, sharp and powerful, shaking the stones of the ruins. The beasts froze, their ears twitching. The sound was not human. It was primal, furious, filled with fire. Ethan forced his eyes open. From the shadows of the broken wall, a figure stepped into the moonlight. Tall, fierce, with skin glowing faintly like silver steel. Her eyes burned with fire, her face twisted with rage. She carried no weapon, but her claws gleamed sharper than blades. It was the girl's mother. She launched herself forward, her fury unstoppable. She tore into the beasts with raw power, her movements faster than Ethan could follow. The ruins filled with snarls, roars, and the crack of bones. Ethan clutched the child close, shielding her from the sight, though she still buried her face in his chest, sobbing. One by one, the beasts fell. Silence returned, heavy and sharp. The mother stood tall over the broken bodies, her chest rising and falling. She turned slowly, her burning eyes falling on Ethan. For a long moment, neither moved. The human, bloody and weak, knelt in front of her, her child still in his arms. His body shielded the young even now. The alien mother's expression shifted from fury to shock. Her voice was low, trembling with something she had never felt before. "You shielded her," she whispered. "With your body?" Her eyes widened, disbelief and wonder mixing in her face. And in that instant, something ancient stirred in the ruins, something far stronger than law, stronger than blood. The night had changed forever. The silence after the battle was heavy, broken only by the faint crackle of burning torches that hung in the ruins. The air smelled of blood and dust. Ethan knelt on the cold ground, still holding the trembling child close against his chest. His arms were stiff, his body weak, but he refused to let go. His breath came in sharp, shallow bursts, and blood from his wounds dripped onto the broken stones beneath him. The tall alien woman stepped closer, her steps echoing like thunder in the ruined plaza. Her presence was overwhelming, not just in size, but in the power that radiated from her body. Her eyes, burning gold, locked on Ethan and the child in his arms. Her lips trembled as if she could not believe what she was seeing. She stopped just a few feet away. For the first time since she appeared, the child lifted her head from Ethan's chest. Her small silver eyes lit up with sudden hope. "Mother!" she cried, her voice breaking. The alien mother dropped to her knees instantly, arms outstretched. The little one slipped from Ethan's grasp and stumbled forward, throwing herself into her mother's arms. The woman held her tightly, her body shaking with emotion, relief, and fury all at once. Her claws curled protectively around the child, as though she feared the world might snatch her away again. But even as she held her daughter close, her golden eyes never left Ethan. He tried to push himself up, but his body collapsed halfway. His weapon clattered to the ground beside him. His head hung low, his face pale from blood loss. Yet even in that broken state, he tried to rise, as if the instinct to protect had not yet left him. The alien mother's voice was sharp, filled with emotion she struggled to control. You shielded her? With your body?" Her words trembled in the air like something sacred. Ethan forced his eyes up to meet hers. His voice was weak but steady. "I couldn't just stand there." The mother's lips parted slightly as though she wanted to argue, but no words came. Her people had always told stories of humans as dangerous, selfish, or cruel. Yet here was a man, bleeding out, who had chosen to protect her daughter even when death circled him. She rose to her full height, still holding the child against her chest. Her body loomed over Ethan like a shadow of silver steel. The other survivors of her clan began to arrive, drawn by the sounds of the battle. From the ruins, several alien figures stepped into the plaza. Their eyes widened when they saw the beast lying dead, the human slumped in blood, and their warrior mother holding her daughter. "Who is he?" one of them asked. Their voices were low, cautious. The mother looked down at Ethan again. She saw his torn suit, his broken weapon, his trembling arms. She saw the child's small hands clutching his blood-stained sleeve, even as she stayed safe in her embrace. Something stirred deep inside her chest, something older than reason. "He belongs to me now," she said, her voice firm, echoing across the plaza. The words stunned everyone, including Ethan. He coughed, his voice hoarse. "Wait, what?" Her golden eyes narrowed, fierce and unshaken. "You risked your life to shield my blood. By the ancient laws of my people, by the bond of protection, you are mine now." The other aliens gasped. Some exchanged uneasy glances. The law was old, older than the ruins around them. It declared that anyone who gave their life to protect a child was bound to the child's family, claimed as kin forever. Few had seen it happen in their lifetime, and never with a human. Ethan shook his head weakly, trying to understand. "I didn't do it for a law, I just couldn't let her die." The mother stepped closer, her presence heavy and commanding. She looked into his fading eyes. "It does not matter why you did it. What matters is that you did." The little girl tugged at her mother's arm, pointing back at Ethan. Her voice was small but urgent. "Don't let him die, Mother, please." The mother's heart clenched at her daughter's plea. For a moment, the fierce warrior softened. She looked at Ethan's pale face, his stubborn will refusing to let go of life. Against all instincts, against all history between their species, she made her decision. She bent down and slid her free arm under his body. With effortless strength, she lifted him into her arms as if he weighed nothing. Ethan groaned softly, but he did not resist. His blood stained her armor, yet she did not flinch. The other aliens murmured in shock. She carries him? A human? But the mother silenced them with a single glance, her voice rising in authority. This human saved my child when none of you were here. He is not prey. He is not outsider. He is claimed. Her tribe fell silent. The law had been spoken, and none could challenge it without dishonor. Ethan, half-conscious, tried to speak again. I'm not yours. His words faded into a whisper. The mother looked down at him, her eyes unreadable. You will understand soon. She turned away, carrying both her daughter and the wounded human through the ruins. The tribe followed, still whispering, still uncertain. But in their eyes, some fear began to mix with something else. Respect. Ethan's vision blurred as the night sky faded above him. His last thought before darkness claimed him was the sound of the little girl's voice, whispering into his ear as she held onto his arm. Thank you, Guardian. The night passed in silence, broken only by the sound of footsteps echoing through the ruins as the alien mother carried Ethan back to her hidden village. Her daughter clung to her shoulder while Ethan's limp form rested in her other arm. His armor was torn, blood dripping onto the dusty path, but still his chest rose faintly with each shallow breath. The village was hidden deep inside a canyon where the broken walls of nature shielded them from raiders and beasts. Tall alien huts glowed with faint blue fire, their strange designs curling like roots against the stone cliffs. As the mother entered the camp with Ethan in her arms, whispers spread like wildfire. A human? Why does she carry him? Is he prisoner or prey? The mother's golden eyes silenced them all. She carried Ethan straight into the heart of the village where the healers lived. Their long robes shimmered with threads of silver light, and their hands glowed softly with ancient medicine. She laid Ethan on a carved stone bed, her daughter still holding onto his sleeve as though afraid he might vanish if she let go. Save him, the mother ordered. Her voice was sharp, unyielding. The healers looked at each other with hesitation. He is not one of us, one said softly. Why risk our herbs and strength for an outsider? The mother's jaw tightened. Her claws tapped against the stone. Because he shielded my blood with his body. By law, by bond, he is mine. If he dies, dishonor falls on this tribe. The words fell heavy like stones into water. The healers bowed their heads. None dared to defy her. They moved quickly, placing glowing leaves over Ethan's wounds, sealing his torn skin with light, and giving him water from crystal flasks that shimmered like liquid stars. Hours passed. Ethan drifted between darkness and faint dreams. Sometimes he heard the little girl whispering to him, "Don't leave us." Sometimes he heard the mother's steady voice commanding the healers. At last he opened his eyes fully. His chest ached, his shoulder throbbed, but he was alive. When he tried to sit up, a sharp voice stopped him. "Stay down." He turned his head. The alien mother sat nearby, her daughter asleep against her arm. Her golden eyes burned into him, steady and unreadable. "You should be dead," she said. Ethan gave a faint smile. "I've been told that before." The mother did not smile back. Instead, she leaned forward. "You saved her. You risked your life when no one asked you to. Why?" Ethan thought for a moment, his voice soft. "Because she's a child. Doesn't matter what species she is. She deserved to live." The mother studied him silently. For a long moment, her expression softened. But then it hardened again. She stood tall, her voice rising so all nearby could hear. "Then hear me, human. From this day you are bound to us. By ancient law, when one shields the young with their own body, they are claimed as family. You are mine now, claimed by me, protector of my child." The words echoed across the camp. Gasps spread among the villagers. Some looked horrified, others curious. Ethan frowned. "Claimed? I don't understand." The mother crossed her arms. "You will learn. It means you are no longer stranger. You belong here with us. You will eat our food, walk among our people, and stand under my protection. But also," her eyes narrowed slightly, "you will carry the weight of that bond. If you betray us, you will face death." Ethan let out a heavy breath, struggling to make sense of it. "I didn't ask for this. I didn't do it for some law. I just did what was right." Her golden eyes softened for just a second as though she almost understood, but her voice was still firm when she replied, "Right or not, you cannot undo what you did. The bond has been made. You are one of us now." The little girl stirred awake, rubbing her eyes. When she saw Ethan conscious, her face lit up with joy. She scrambled off her mother's lap and rushed to his side, clutching his hand tightly. "You're alive! I knew you wouldn't leave us." Ethan looked down at her small hand in his. A strange warmth filled his chest. He had protected her without thinking, and now her trust was complete, pure, unshaken. He could not find the words to answer her, so he only squeezed her hand gently. But outside the healer's hut, the tribe gathered, murmuring with unease. Some whispered that the law was sacred and the human must stay. Others muttered darkly that he was dangerous, a curse, a weakness that would bring trouble. Their voices rose louder until one of the elders, his skin lined with glowing cracks of age, stepped forward. He spoke in a voice like dry stone. "If he is claimed, let him prove himself. Let the human show he is worthy of this bond. Otherwise, he will bring ruin upon us." The villagers agreed, their murmurs turning into shouts of approval. The mother looked down at Ethan, her expression cold but steady. "They will not accept you easily," she said. "You must show them why you live. You must show them why you are worthy of the bond you created." Ethan leaned back against the stone bed, exhausted but unbroken. His voice was hoarse, but his words were clear. "If that's what it takes, then I'll prove it." The mother's eyes lingered on him. For the first time, there was something in her gaze that looked almost like respect. Almost. The night grew heavy again, but the bond was sealed. The human was no longer just a wanderer in the ruins. He was claimed, by law, by oath, and by the heart of a child who called him guardian. The days passed slowly in the alien village. Ethan's wounds healed under the glowing hands of the healers, but the stares of the villagers cut deeper than claws. Wherever he walked, whispers followed him. Children pointed, their eyes wide with curiosity, while the elders frowned with suspicion. Some warriors spat on the ground as he passed, muttering words he could not understand but whose meaning was clear. Only the little girl, the one he had saved, smiled without fear. She clung to his side whenever she could, calling him guardian in her soft voice. Ethan would ruffle her hair gently, though he still felt awkward with the name. He was no guardian, at least not in his own eyes. The mother, whose name he had learned was Selah, watched all of this in silence. She spoke little to him, but her golden eyes often lingered on him when she thought he did not notice. There was no warmth in her gaze, but no hatred either. It was something else, a careful, measured calculation, as if she was still deciding what he truly was. One evening, as the twin moons rose above the canyon, the tribe gathered in the central square. Torches burned in a circle, casting tall shadows against the stone cliffs. The elder, his cracked skin glowing faintly, raised his staff. "This human is claimed," the elder declared, his voice strong and echoing. "But a bond means nothing without proof. He must show he is worthy, or the law becomes a mockery. If he cannot stand with us, he will leave this place or die." Murmurs rose from the crowd. Warriors nodded grimly. Villagers whispered their doubts. Ethan stood at the edge of the circle, his fists clenched at his sides. He had known this was coming. "What kind of proof?" Ethan asked, his voice steady. The elder's eyes glowed faintly as he pointed toward the distant cliffs. "Raiders move in the wastelands. They steal food, take children, and burn what they cannot carry. Already their scouts circle our borders. If you are to stay human, you will help us face them. You will stand with our warriors and fight." The words dropped like heavy stones. The villagers looked at Ethan, some with amusement, some with expectation. A lone human fighting raiders sounded like madness. But Selah stepped forward, her daughter clutching her hand. "The bond is law," Selah said firmly. "If he fights with me," the villagers gasped. To fight beside Selah, the fiercest protector of the tribe, was no small honor. She was both feared and respected, a warrior who had saved them countless times. Her willingness to fight beside the human silenced many doubts, though not all. The elder struck his staff against the ground. "So it is decided. At the next moonrise, when the raiders come, the human will stand with us. If he falters, if he runs, he will not live another night." The crowd dispersed slowly, their voices low and heavy with expectation. Ethan remained standing in the torchlight, his mind racing. He had fought before, on other worlds and other battles, but never for people who saw him as an outsider. This was different. Later that night, he sat alone near the healer's hut, sharpening the edge of a broken blade the tribe had given him. His weapon was gone, drained of power, and the tribe had no spare human technology. He would have to fight with their tools, crude but deadly. A shadow fell across him. He looked up to see Selah, her golden eyes reflecting the firelight. "You should rest," she said. I've rested enough, Ethan replied, running the stone against the blade again. If I'm going to fight, I'll need more than hope. Selah studied him in silence for a moment. Then she sat across from him, her daughter already asleep in her arms. Her voice was low, almost softer than he had ever heard it. You should not have survived that night, she said. The beast should have killed you. Yet you stood. And now you stand again. Ethan looked at her, his jaw tight. You think I can't do this? Her lips curved slightly. Not a smile, but something close. I think you are strange. Humans are not like us. But perhaps that is not weakness. Perhaps it is something else. For the first time, Ethan felt a flicker of respect from her. It was small, fragile, but real. As the night deepened, the little girl stirred in Selah's arms. Her tiny hand reached out in her sleep and brushed against Ethan's arm. He froze, then gently placed his hand over hers. I'll protect her, he said quietly, more to himself than to Selah. The mother's golden eyes softened, just for a moment. You already have. The next morning, the village prepared for battle. Warriors armed themselves with long spears tipped with crystal, their armor painted with glowing symbols of protection. Drums echoed through the canyon, deep and steady like the heartbeat of the earth. Ethan stood among them, wearing borrowed armor too heavy for his frame, holding a blade too alien in design. The villagers watched him, some with scorn, others with doubt, but the little girl stood proudly beside him, her eyes shining with trust. When the sun dipped below the horizon, scouts ran into the square, their voices sharp with warning. The raiders are coming! The warriors roared, raising their weapons. Ethan's grip tightened around the hilt of his blade. His heart pounded, not with fear, but with resolve. He had been a soldier before, but this time it was different. This time he was not fighting for orders or survival. He was fighting for a bond sealed in blood and trust. And as the first war cries echoed across the canyon, Ethan knew one thing with absolute certainty: he would not fail them. The night sky was alive with fire. Red flares rose from the distant cliffs as the raiders came, their war cries echoing across the canyon like thunder. The ground shook with the pounding of many feet, and the air filled with the clashing of drums louder and louder, until even the children of the village huddled together in fear. Ethan stood at the front lines with the alien warriors, his heart hammering against his ribs. His blade, sharpened and strange in his hands, glowed faintly with the crystals embedded in its edge. He shifted his grip, forcing his breath to steady. He had fought before, yes, but this battle was not for money or orders. It was for the little girl who trusted him, for the mother who had claimed him, and for a tribe that doubted him. Beside him stood Selah, tall and fierce, her golden eyes burning brighter than the flames. Her armor shimmered with runes of protection, her claws wrapped around a long spear that gleamed in the moonlight. She looked at Ethan once, her gaze steady. Stay close, she said. He nodded. I don't plan on running. The canyon roared with sudden chaos. The raiders surged into view, scarred creatures with jagged armor carrying blades made from stolen metal. Their faces were hidden behind bone masks, their voices shrill and merciless. They rushed toward the village like a tide of shadows. The alien warriors charged to meet them. Spears clashed against crude weapons and screams filled the air. The ground shook as the two sides collided. Ethan threw himself into the fray, blocking a raider's strike with his blade. The shock rattled his arms, but he pushed back, kicking the raider aside and striking with all his strength. The creature fell, but another took its place instantly. All around him, fire burned. Torches lit the canyon walls, shadows dancing as warriors fought with desperation. Ethan moved on instinct, dodging blows, striking back, his blood still hot from the battle days before. His wounds ached, but he did not slow down. Each swing of his blade was not for himself, but for the little girl watching from the healer's hut. Selah fought like a storm. She tore through the raiders with her spear, every movement sharp and precise. Her roar shook the night, sending fear through the enemy. She fought close to Ethan, never letting him out of her sight. When one raider lunged at Ethan's blind side, Selah's spear struck first, piercing its chest before it could touch him. Keep moving, she shouted. Ethan gritted his teeth and pressed forward. His blade met another raider's weapon, sparks flying in the dark. He twisted, knocking the creature off balance, and drove his blade into its side. The raider screamed and fell, but as he pulled his weapon free, a heavy blow struck the back of his head. His vision blurred, his knees buckled. Strong arms grabbed him, yanking his blade away. Rough ropes bound his wrists, and the raiders dragged him back through the chaos. Ethan fought, but his strength was fading fast. He saw Sayla through the smoke, her eyes widening as she realized what had happened. "Ethan!" she roared. She cut down 3 raiders in a single swing, but more swarmed between them. The battle dragged her away, the tide of enemies forcing her back. The raiders pulled Ethan out of the fight, dragging him across the sand toward the wasteland. His armor scraped against the ground, his body heavy with exhaustion. He shouted, struggling against the ropes, but the raiders only laughed. One of them raised a crude club and struck him hard. Darkness swallowed his vision. When Ethan opened his eyes, he was lying in the dirt of a camp lit by cruel red fires. The raiders had chained him to a post, his blade thrown aside. Around him, broken crates and stolen goods littered the camp. He could hear the laughter of his captors, sharp and mocking, as they celebrated dragging a human prisoner into their den. Ethan's head pounded, his lips dry. But he clenched his jaw, refusing to show fear. He tugged at the chains, testing them, but they held strong. Back in the village, Sayla's fury shook the canyon. She cut down the last of the raiders who dared stand before her. Her armor was cracked, her breath heavy, but her golden eyes burned hotter than fire. She stood in the middle of the battlefield, her spear dripping with blood, her chest rising and falling like a predator ready to strike again. Her daughter ran to her, her small hands clutching at Sayla's leg. "Where is he? Where is the guardian?" Sayla's jaw tightened. She looked around, but Ethan was gone. Her fists clenched around her spear until the wood cracked. Her roar echoed into the night, a sound of rage that made even the bravest warriors step back. "They took him," she growled. "The raiders dared take him," the tribe murmured uneasily. Some whispered that it was better this way, that the human's presence had brought nothing but danger. But the little girl shook her head, tears in her silver eyes. "No," she cried. "He saved me. He saved us!" "We can't let them take him." Sayla's golden eyes softened for a heartbeat as she looked at her daughter. Then her gaze hardened again. She turned toward the wastelands, her voice sharp as steel. "I will bring him back," she swore. "No raider lives who touches what is mine." The warriors bowed their heads, some out of respect, others out of fear. None dared challenge her vow. Sayla's fury was unstoppable, and they knew she would fight until her last breath. Far away, chained in the raiders' camp, Ethan lifted his head despite the pain. His mind burned with one thought, one hope, that the alien mother who claimed him would not abandon him. And somewhere in the darkness, he thought he heard the faint echo of her voice. "I am coming for you." The wasteland stretched wide and merciless under the pale moons. Black sand shifted with every gust of wind, carrying the smell of ash and fire. In the distance, the raider camp burned with red light, its crude towers stabbing into the sky like jagged teeth. Drums beat faintly from within and laughter echoed, the laughter of raiders celebrating their prize. Sayla stood on the ridge overlooking the camp. Her golden eyes narrowed, glowing like fire against the night. She had tracked them all day, never stopping, never resting. Her armor was cracked from the earlier battle, her spear chipped, but her resolve burned hotter than ever. Below, chained to a wooden post near the center fire, was Ethan. His head hung low, his body battered. His wrists were bound, ankles shackled, yet still he breathed. Sayla's sharp gaze softened for only a moment as she looked at him, but then hardened again. She turned to the few warriors who had followed her. "Stay here," she ordered. One warrior frowned, but her glare silenced him. "This is not your fight. It is mine." The warriors bowed, stepping back. None dared to stand in her way. Sayla descended the ridge like a predator, silent and swift. Shadows wrapped around her as she moved, the night becoming her ally. She reached the outer ring of the camp, slipping past drunken guards who laughed over stolen food. Her claws tightened around her spear, but she did not waste her strength yet. Every step was precise, every breath controlled. At the center, Ethan stirred. The raiders had beaten him, but his spirit was not broken. He raised his head slowly, his vision blurry, and caught sight of a familiar figure moving in the shadows. His heart jumped. "Sayla," he whispered, though his voice was too weak to carry. One of the raiders noticed his movement and kicked him in the side. "Quiet, human. Tomorrow you'll entertain us before you die." Ethan groaned but forced himself not to cry out. He knew she was near. He could feel it, a strange certainty burning in his chest. And then the silence broke. A roar split the night. Sayla burst from the shadows like lightning, her spear slamming through the first raider's chest. The camp exploded into chaos. Raiders scrambled to grab weapons, but she was already among them. her golden eyes blazing, her fury unstoppable. She cut through them like fire cuts through dry grass. Her movements were fast, sharp, brutal. Each strike of her spear was final. Each roar of her voice shook the raiders' courage. Some tried to flee, but she hunted them down, leaving no escape. Ethan watched in awe, his chains rattling as he struggled to rise. He had seen warriors before, but never like this. Sayla was not just fighting. She was avenging, protecting, claiming what she had sworn would not be taken. A raider captain stepped forward, larger than the rest, wielding a massive axe. He roared and swung at Sayla with bone-crushing force. She met his strike with her spear, the impact shaking the ground. For a moment, they locked in a deadly struggle. Strength against strength. Sparks flew as crystal met metal. The captain laughed. "You fight like fire, but you'll burn out." Sayla's lips curled in a snarl. "Not tonight." With a sudden twist, she broke the lock, spun, and drove her spear through his chest. The captain fell with a scream, blood spilling across the sand. The remaining raiders hesitated, their courage shattered. Sayla's roar sent them fleeing into the wasteland, their camp abandoned in terror. Silence fell again, broken only by the crackle of fire. Sayla dropped her spear, chest rising and falling. She turned toward Ethan. He was still chained, still bleeding, but his eyes burned with stubborn light. Sayla strode to him, her claws ripping through the chains as if they were paper. Ethan fell forward and she caught him easily, holding him against her chest. "You came," he whispered weakly. Her voice was low, rough with emotion she tried to hide. "I told you I would." She carried him away from the broken camp, the fires behind them fading into the night. They reached the ridge where her warriors waited, their eyes wide with awe. None spoke as they saw her holding the human in her arms like something precious. Back at the village, Ethan lay once more in the healer's hut. This time Sayla did not stand far away. She stayed close, sitting beside him, her daughter curled up at her side. Her golden eyes never left him. When Ethan's strength returned enough for him to sit up, he looked at her directly. "Why?" he asked softly. "Why risk everything to save me?" "I was just a stranger who helped your child." Sayla's lips tightened. For a long time she did not answer. But finally her voice came, low and steady. "When you shielded her with your body, something ancient stirred. In our law, yes, you were claimed. But it is not just law." Her gaze softened, almost fragile. "It is truth. You are part of us now. My daughter calls you guardian, and I cannot deny what you have become." Ethan felt her words like a weight in his chest. He looked at the little girl asleep beside them, her tiny hand resting on his arm even in dreams. A warmth spread through him, stronger than pain, stronger than fear. "I don't know if I belong here," he admitted, his voice shaking. "But I'll try. For her. For you." Sayla's golden eyes held his, fierce and steady. For the first time there was no calculation, no suspicion, only truth. "Then you are not stranger anymore," she said. "You are family." And in the quiet of the healer's hut, surrounded by shadows of firelight, Ethan realized that somewhere in this alien world, he had found something he thought he had lost long ago. A home. The village was quiet after the battle. The fires had been put out, the raiders defeated, but the memory of the fight lingered in every shadow. Children clung to their parents, warriors nursed their wounds, and the elders whispered about the human who had returned alive from the raiders' camp. Ethan sat outside the healer's hut, his body still wrapped in bandages. The cold wind brushed across his face, carrying the smell of smoke and stone. His eyes wandered over the canyon, where villagers moved about with guarded glances in his direction. Some looked at him with curiosity, others with doubt, but none ignored him anymore. The little girl ran up to him, her small feet kicking dust as she hurried. She climbed onto the stone beside him and grabbed his arm with both hands, her silver eyes shining. "You came back," she said with a wide smile. Ethan gave a tired chuckle. "I told you I wouldn't leave." She leaned against him, her warmth small but steady. For a moment, Ethan felt something he had not felt in years. Peace. Soon the drums sounded across the canyon, deep and steady. It was a call for gathering. The villagers streamed toward the central square, carrying torches that lit up the night. Ethan stood slowly, the girl tugging his hand, and followed. He knew this was not over. In the square, the tribe formed a great circle. The elder stepped forward, his staff glowing faintly. His voice carried authority. "The human has fought beside us. He has shed blood for our children. He was taken, but he returned. And yet," his eyes swept the crowd. "The question remains, is he truly one of us?" Whispers spread. Some voices shouted no, others argued yes. The tension was heavy, ready to break. Then Selah stepped into the circle. She stood tall, her golden eyes burning like fire. Her daughter stood by her side, holding Ethan's hand tightly. The crowd fell silent at the sight. Selah raised her voice, sharp and steady. He shielded my child with his body when no one else was there. He fought beside us when raiders came. He was taken, but he did not break. He returned because he is bound to us, not by chains, not by chance, but by choice. He is claimed, yes. But more than that, he is worthy. The elder frowned. Worthy, perhaps. But can a human walk our path? Can he carry our burdens? Before Ethan could speak, the little girl stepped forward, her small voice carrying across the square. He already has. He's my guardian. She pointed to her chest, her eyes wet with tears. If you make him leave, you'll break my heart. And you'll break the bond, the crowd stirred. Even the hardest warriors looked away, uncomfortable at the child's plea. Ethan finally spoke, his voice low but steady. I didn't come here to take anything from you. I didn't come here to change your ways. I only wanted to do what was right. But if you'll have me, I'll fight for you. I'll protect her. I'll protect this village. Not because of law, not because of force, because I want to. His words echoed in the silence. For a moment, no one moved. Then slowly, one warrior stepped forward, placing his spear in the ground before Ethan. Another followed, then another. One by one, the villagers lowered their weapons in a sign of respect. The elder tapped his staff against the stone. His voice was softer now. Then it is decided. From this night forward, the human is no longer outsider. He is guardian of this tribe. The crowd roared, some in celebration, some in reluctant acceptance, but the decision was final. Ethan had been chosen. Selah turned toward him, her golden eyes steady. Do you see now? You are no longer a wanderer. You are part of us. Ethan met her gaze, a faint smile on his lips. I'm starting to believe it. The little girl leaped into his arms, laughing through her tears. He held her close, his chest heavy with something he had not felt in years. Belonging. That night the village celebrated. Fires burned high, drums echoed, and songs rose into the night sky. Children danced, warriors shared their victories, and elders spoke of old stories renewed with new hope. Ethan sat among them, the little girl curled against him, Selah sitting close at his side. As the stars stretched across the heavens, Ethan looked up and thought of how far he had come. Once he had been alone, a wanderer with no home, no family, no future. Now he had found something greater than himself. He had found trust, purpose, and a bond that could not be broken. The child's voice drifted sleepily into his ear. Guardian, he smiled softly, pulling her closer. Yes, he whispered. Always. Selah's golden eyes met his across the firelight. For the first time, she allowed a small smile to touch her lips. Not fierce, not cold, just real. In that moment, Ethan knew the truth. He was no longer just a human who shielded a child with his body. He was the chosen guardian of an alien people who had once seen him as nothing. And now they looked to him as part of their future, and in his heart he accepted it.